Hello, my name is Mark Thompson, and today I want to share something that completely transformed my life. A story that, honestly, I never expected to experience, and certainly never imagined I'd be telling you about, especially not in front of a camera. It was a regular day in September of 2018, the kind of sunny morning that fills you with energy and optimism. I had just finished my morning workout, something I've always loved, as it gives me a sense of peace and clarity. But what happened next was beyond anything I could have prepared for. It was a moment that transcended time and space, a moment that forever changed how I view the world and the purpose of our lives. On that fateful day, I died. I know that sounds impossible. It was as if my heart just stopped and my entire body went numb. But the truth is, when I left my body, I saw things so extraordinary they shook me to my core. And what's more, I believe it's these very things that God has asked me to share with you today. This is not just another death and life after death story. No, it's a story of love, redemption, and the incredible plans that God has for each of us. Plans far greater than we could ever imagine. So, let me take you back a little bit and tell you a bit about myself. I'm a high school teacher from a small town in Michigan, teaching history and philosophy. I've always been a man of reason and logic, deeply invested in the world of facts and evidence. While I was raised in a religious family, as I grew older, I became disconnected from my faith. My career, my ambitions, my personal life, it all started taking precedence. I still believed in God, but I didn't feel Him in my daily life anymore. I didn't pray often, and church attendance became just a holiday thing. But then, that sunny morning in 2018, something incredible happened. It all began as any normal Saturday would. I laced up my running shoes, heading out for my usual jog through the neighborhood park. The air was fresh and the world around me felt perfect. Everything was calm, everything was right. That was until a sudden and sharp pain erupted in my chest. I collapsed to the ground, unable to catch my breath. Everything went black, and that's when the journey began. I didn't feel pain anymore. I didn't feel fear. I felt at peace. As soon as the pain started, I could feel my body collapse under the weight of it, but strangely I didn't feel any fear. Instead, I felt a deep calmness, as if everything was going to be okay. The sensation of floating was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. My body was lying motionless on the ground, yet I was not in it anymore. I looked down at myself from above, observing the concerned passerby calling 911, their voice shaky with panic. I went for my drink, found it on the culprit, let the shade drip from my face, and hide it in the culprit. But I, the one who should have been in distress, was anything but scared. I felt as if I were encased in a protective cocoon of warmth and light, completely detached from the pain that had gripped my physical form. It's hard to explain, but I felt as though I were being gently guided, not by anyone in particular, but by a sense of peace that I can only describe as divine. I heard the paramedics arrive, working on my body. I could hear their commands, their voices frantic, yet I felt no urgency in myself. It was as if I were merely an observer, a part of something bigger. My body, which I knew was mine, seemed so foreign, as if it no longer belonged to me. And then there was the light. It wasn't just a light. It was more like a presence, a warm, radiant energy pulling me towards it. This light was alive, full of love, and it wasn't just bright, it radiated peace. The closer I got to it, the more I felt embraced by it. I felt no fear, no anxiety, just an overwhelming sense of safety. There was no time, no pressure, everything just was. As I was pulled toward this light, I entered what I can only describe as a tunnel, but it wasn't just a tunnel, it was alive. The walls of the tunnel were not solid, they shimmered with colors I've never seen before, like liquid light constantly shifting and changing. The air in the tunnel was filled with a vibrational hum, almost like music, but deeper. It wasn't something I could hear with my ears, but something I felt deep in my soul. It resonated with me in ways I can't explain. I moved through this tunnel, surrounded by an energy that was both calming and exhilarating, as if every step I took was guiding me towards something beautiful, something beyond comprehension. Then, at the end of the tunnel, I stepped into a garden. It wasn't like any garden I've ever seen before. There were flowers of every color imaginable, glowing with an inner light, as if they were alive, breathing in harmony with everything around them. The air in the garden was filled with a fragrance so pure, so joyful, that it made my heart swell with happiness. And as I stood there, taking it all in, I saw someone approaching me, a familiar figure. It was my grandmother. She was younger than I had ever known her, radiant with a light I can only describe as divine. Her face was full of love, and when she hugged me, it felt like I was being wrapped in a warmth so pure it healed every part of me. "Mark," she said, "it's not your time to stay here. There's something important I need to show you, something you must understand." And so, hand in hand, my grandmother led me through the garden, and I followed her without hesitation, knowing that I was being guided towards something greater than I could possibly comprehend. As my grandmother guided me, the journey continued, and we moved toward what she called the third heaven. I had no idea what to expect, but what I saw and experienced there would change me forever. When we arrived, it was nothing like I had imagined. It wasn't just a place. It felt like an entire realm, both infinite and intimate at the same time. It was vast, like an endless ocean of light, yet it surrounded me like the warm embrace of a loved one. I could feel the energy of this place in every cell of my being. My grandmother began to explain to me what the third heaven was. She said it was a place where souls came immediately after leaving Earth to rest, reflect, and prepare for eternity. This wasn't a final destination, it was a place of transformation. We first entered a zone filled with what I can only describe as pure peace. The souls in this area were glowing with contentment and happiness. They were surrounded by lush landscapes, rolling hills and sparkling streams. The air was filled with a sense of joy, as if everything in this space was thriving in perfect harmony. These souls, my grandmother explained, were those who had lived good, loving lives. They were not perfect, but they had walked in kindness and faith, and they had cultivated love during their time on earth. They were resting here, experiencing a preview of heaven as they waited for the final resurrection. I could feel the peace and joy radiating from these souls, and for the first time in my life, I understood the true meaning of peace. It wasn't just an absence of turmoil, it was a presence, a fullness that filled every corner of this space. We moved on to the next area, one that felt quieter and more reflective. It was a place for souls who had lived decent lives but were still working through unresolved issues. Some were engaged in deep conversations with angelic beings. Others were sitting in solitude, reflecting on their lives and their choices. I saw someone I recognized, my childhood best friend who had passed away years ago. She was sitting with an angel, listening intently as the angel spoke to her. Her face was peaceful, but I could sense that she was working through something important. It was then that I realized this wasn't a place of judgment. This was a place of learning, healing, and growth. Jesus later explained that these were souls who needed time to learn forgiveness, especially to forgive themselves for the things they regretted. They weren't being punished. They were simply being guided toward understanding, toward love, and toward a deeper connection with God. As my journey continued, my grandmother led me to a part of the third heaven that was much darker. It wasn't terrifying or sinister, but there was a weight to this place, a heaviness that I could feel deep within my soul. The souls here were not glowing with light like the others. Instead, they were surrounded by a soft shadow, as though they carried burdens too great to bear. These were the souls of those who had lived selfish or harmful lives. They weren't being punished, but they were facing the consequences of their own choices. I saw one soul in particular, a distant cousin who had struggled with addiction and destructive choices. He looked lost, as if he couldn't find his way out. But even in this dark place, there was hope. I saw angels gently moving among these souls, offering them light, encouraging them to turn toward God. One angel approached my cousin, softly whispering something in his ear. He looked up, as if hearing something for the first time, as if hope had finally pierced through his despair. It was then that I realized, even in the darkest places, there is always hope. The encounter with Jesus, a love beyond understanding. As we moved deeper into the third heaven, something incredible happened. My grandmother, who had been guiding me through all the spaces we visited, suddenly stopped. She looked at me with a knowing expression, as though she was preparing me for something extraordinary. "I have brought you here," she said softly, "so you can meet him, the one who holds all the answers, the one whose love is beyond anything you can fathom." My heart started racing, and a sense of anticipation filled me. And then he appeared. Jesus. When he stepped into my view, everything around me changed. The colors seemed brighter, the air heavier with a tangible presence of peace. His appearance was nothing like I had imagined. He wasn't wearing a crown or sitting on a throne. He was simply standing before me, radiating a warmth that could only be described as pure love. His eyes met mine, and in that instant, I felt like he was looking into the deepest parts of my soul. There was no need for words at first. His presence said everything. I felt known, completely and unconditionally. Every part of me, every thought, every mistake, every joy, I felt fully seen. And yet, I felt no judgment. Instead, I felt a deep, overwhelming love that seemed to wash over me like a cleansing wave. "Mark," he said, his voice calm yet powerful, "what you are experiencing is just a glimpse of what awaits you. This is the truth of what exists beyond your world. The love you feel here is just a shadow of what you will know in eternity. The choices you make now on earth, the love you give and receive, the forgiveness you show, these are what shape your eternal soul." Jesus walked toward me, and as he did, the very space around us seemed to glow even brighter. His love wasn't just something that surrounded us. It filled every particle of existence. He continued to speak, his voice echoing in my heart rather than my ears. "You are here to understand that every act of love, every decision, every prayer, these are the threads that weave together your eternity. What you do here with your life matters. It is not just about surviving, it is about becoming who you were always meant to be." I stood there, overwhelmed by everything I had seen, everything I had felt. It was as if time itself had stopped, and I could feel the weight of eternity pressing down on me. Jesus continued to speak, his words resonating within me. "Mark, you must understand this. Even the darkest places you saw, the souls burdened by their choices, they are not without hope. Even in the deepest despair, my love is there. It reaches out to every soul, but they must choose to receive it." He looked at me with such compassion, his eyes filled with a love so profound it pierced my soul. "Tell my people that no one is beyond redemption, not one. Every soul has the chance to turn back to the light, but it requires a choice. It is up to each individual to open their heart to my love." Then I saw something extraordinary. Jesus raised his hand, and I saw the earth before me as if I were standing on a mountain looking down at the world. People were going about their lives, laughing, crying, working, struggling. But as I watched, I could see their souls glowing with light. Some souls shone brightly, others dimly. Those who lived in love and faith radiated a brilliant light, while those who had turned away from love were cloaked in shadow. "This is the truth, Mark," Jesus said. "The choices you make on earth are not just for this life. They shape your soul for eternity. Every act of love, every prayer, every moment of forgiveness matters, and those who walk with me, their light will never go out. The next moment, everything seemed to slow down. I was still standing in front of Jesus, but the world around me began to fade. The light, the warmth, the immense love, everything started pulling away from me, almost as if the universe was taking me back. I couldn't comprehend it. Why would I leave? Why would I go back to earth when I had witnessed such a glorious truth, such a love beyond all understanding? But Jesus, with a calm but urgent look, placed his hands on my shoulders and spoke gently. "Mark, your journey here is not finished. There is much for you to do. You must return and share what you have seen, what you have learned. My people need to know that life is more than the struggles and distractions of the world. They need to understand the significance of their choices, their love and their faith. Tell them about the power of love, about redemption, and about the eternal hope that is always within reach." His words were clear, and as he spoke I felt a deep peace settle within me, a knowing that this was my purpose. I had to go back. I had to share this message of love, hope and redemption with others, especially with those who might feel lost or hopeless. Before I could speak, he looked deep into my eyes, his gaze full of understanding. "Do not fear, Mark," he said. "Though the world may seem dark and difficult at times, I am always with you. Even in your hardest moments, you are never alone. My love surrounds you. You must be a beacon of that love, guiding others back to the light. Share your story, and it will help others find their way home." At that moment, I felt a gentle, yet powerful pull. It wasn't harsh, but it was undeniable. The warmth of the light faded slightly, and I felt myself being drawn back toward the earth. I didn't want to go, but I knew I had no choice. I had a mission now. I had a purpose, and just like that, the world around me shifted. I felt the cool air fill my lungs as I gasped for breath. My heart, which had been still for so long, started beating again. The sounds of the paramedics filled my ears as they worked frantically to revive me. I was back. The next few moments were a blur. I was in an ambulance, surrounded by the sounds of medical equipment and the frantic voices of the paramedics, but amidst the chaos, I felt a profound sense of peace. I knew I had been given a second chance, a new purpose. The journey I had just experienced was real, and the message I was meant to share had been imprinted on my heart forever. The doctors were amazed. I had been clinically dead for over 5 minutes, but I survived. No brain damage, no complications. It was nothing short of a miracle. But I knew, deep down, that it wasn't just a medical miracle. It was God's plan for me. He had sent me back for a reason, and I could no longer go back to the life I had before. The months after my near-death experience were a whirlwind. I went back to my teaching job, but everything had changed. I no longer saw my students, my co-workers, or even the world around me in the same way. I now saw them as souls, each one of them carrying the potential to reflect God's love, whether they knew it or not. I started to see the world through a new lens, one where every choice, every act of kindness, and every word of encouragement mattered. I realized that life wasn't just about surviving, about achieving success or avoiding failure. It was about growing in love, faith, and kindness. It was about choosing to reflect God's love in every interaction. And so I began sharing my story. It wasn't always easy. Some people were skeptical, others moved by it. But I kept going, because I knew that the message I had been given was too important to ignore. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. You are loved, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done. There is always hope. Jesus loves you with a love that is beyond anything you can imagine, and he is always ready to welcome you home. Our choices matter. Every decision, every act of kindness, every moment we choose love over hate, light over darkness. These choices shape who we are and who we will become for eternity. If you're watching this and you're feeling lost, I want you to know this. It's not too late. No matter what mistakes you've made, no matter what regrets you carry, Jesus is waiting for you. He is always there, arms open wide, ready to embrace you with his love.